specifically our retailers, our restaurateurs, in bringing you together and giving you the resources we think will help you reopen and recover. I'm Mark Trowbridge with our Coral Gables Chamber of Commerce, and it's an honor once again to join all of you and moderate today's conversation between Syama and Francesca, two faces you're very familiar with. I'll introduce them in a moment, but I just want to remind you that this is going to be recorded. We are certainly hoping for great engagement, conversation, and questions from each and every one of you. So use the chat function, raise your hand, shout it out, whatever way you can get noticed. And most importantly, we're going to be telling you about some exciting things on the horizon in July related to a grant for our businesses. We're not quite ready to share that information yet, but we're very excited what's been going on behind the scenes. And I couldn't be more proud of our city partners for their creative approach to finding ways to help each and every one of you, our most valued, respected, and great businesses that make up the backbone of Coral Gables. I think today is really going to be about sharing. If you were with us during our first seminar a couple of weeks ago, we had an opportunity to really showcase some of our businesses, and the takeaways for that really helped inform today's program. And so Syama Megar from Scaling Retail is back with us. She is one of our fan faves. We love her. She has worked with us through the Streetscape project and beyond to really speak to our businesses on how you can be the very best with the limited resources many of you have. And I know Francesca Valdez, many of you know her as our wonderful retail strategist from the city of Coral Gables, but also a creative force in the City Beautiful. And today they're going to be in conversation. I'm going to be a bit of the fly on the wall, interject where appropriate, but today is really about you, how to be the best at what you're doing, how to take the resources that you have, and how to create conversations to help you in your recovery. It's hard to believe, but we are in week 5, full week 5, since the reopening began in Coral Gables back on May the 18th. And it's been a little bit of a slow go. I know a lot of you have been frustrated, and I think even the last week or so have been really challenging with a spike in new cases. Today's requirement of the mass emergency order, I hope you've heard about that. That takes effect at midnight tonight. I'm sure Francesca will mention more about that. But all in the name of staying open, staying safe, and recovering in a way that is very Coral Gables. So I'm going to quickly introduce Syama to give us a few words of welcome. She's going to give us the bulk of the presentation today. Francesca will also converse with her, but I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. So if something comes up, let me know. I'm glad to interject. And Syama's really good too of keeping an eye there and an eye on each of you. But we couldn't be more proud of the partnership and the opportunity to work together. I want to say thank you to Ora Reinhardt, the new BID Executive Director, and a special thank you to Tatiana Amador, who also assisted us with putting together this 3-party deal. Certainly Francesca and her colleagues, Julian Belkes, and the Economic Development Department, and our great, wonderful partner, Syama. So take it away.
Wonderful, Francesca. I mean, how do we go from that introduction? That seems
pretty stellar.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks, Mark. It's always wonderful to have an introduction from you. I feel like it gets better and better every time. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm always so thrilled to be here to be able to share information to help drive your businesses to be more efficient, more productive. There are always changing strategies in the world of retail. Certainly this time period is more unusual than the previous time periods. And today, Francesca and I are going to be talking a lot about how to look at merchandising, marketing, and the different approaches and ways you'll be able to actually start to open up your stores, open up your e-com businesses, and do business in a way that is more efficient, that's more driving home a better profit margin, and that's going to be able to alleviate, let's say, some of those questions and question marks that you might have on how to look at these different areas of your business, how to be looking at marketing, what should those spends be looking like. And guys, we would love for this to be very interactive. Most of you know I have a lot to say, so feel free to jump in with questions. And Francesca's going to be kind of representing, until we get some of you guys on the line, she'll be kind of advocating and representing the small business in this case. So I imagine she's going to have some pretty tough questions, and I hope that I do a good job answering. But Francesca, any words from you before we jump in?
No, I think that's exactly it. You know, when we were putting together this series, we really wanted to come up with some content that would be helpful, you know, not only in the light of the pandemic, but beyond it. So that's kind of how we came to this point. So, you know, you guys have been operating in a new space and in a new time and but how do we now plan to get through this, through the next phases, as hopefully things continue to open and we move forward? And where's the best place to be investing our money? And what's the best way to look at what our merchandise is and what we have on hand? So that's kind of how we got to this point. And as both Mark and Syama mentioned, we definitely want you guys to be involved. And I've got the chat screen up. I already see some of our retailers and restaurateurs that I know could add a lot to the conversation. So hopefully you don't mind if we kind of pick you out of the crowd and say just to join us in the talk. But you know, it's really about also hearing from you guys about what else you need and what next steps you have, because we will have another topic following this conversation. So, you know, perhaps you want to share back with us and say, you know, we love this, but we'd like to see this for the next phase. So, so yeah, let's just dive right in.
Dive in. All right, super. So couple forewarnings. Number one, I might be talking about formulas and math. Don't worry about taking notes. We're gonna send out after this meeting a recap so you guys will have access to everything that you need in terms of how to do the math and calculations. And I hope all of you don't just drop off because I said math, but you know, there's going to be some math as we take a look at budgets and as we look at inventory planning. And don't be intimidated. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. So today is going to be a lot about concepts, you know, understanding how we look at things, the best approaches to looking at things. I will also be doing a screen share during a certain point in this presentation. So if you guys are not connected with your computers, you may want to be connected with your computers. I'd say about, you know, about 20 minutes or so, 20, 30 minutes, so that we can actually go through some back-end screen sharing on Facebook and looking at ads and things like that. But it's going to be a lot of information. So, you know, I would say let's get started with how we're going to look at this from a macro perspective, and then we'll kind of dive in, slice in. And as you guys have questions, I will hopefully have answers. And again, there'll be a recap and a replay to come from this. So we're going to start with merchandising, because merchandising and product planning, I think, is not only top of mind, as many of you guys have been, you know, sitting on merchandise that likely hasn't been selling in a couple months, right? Maybe you have some items that have been selling a lot and you have some items that have not been selling at all. And one of the questions is likely, how are we going to be, you know, really thinking about our inventory and what it is that we have? And then how are we actually going to be able to think about beyond our inventory, what should be moving, right? What is the right way of looking at inventory flow and inventory forecasting? So coming out of this COVID time period, and still kind of in the middle of it, but coming out of it, you're likely looking at your store or you're looking at your inventory report and you're asking yourself, okay, I have one of this item, I have 30 of this item. How do I go about putting things on sale? What is the mechanism to be able to get people in the store? And how do I look at inventory in such a way where it doesn't look like I'm going out of business? You know, one of the biggest things that I've seen kind of coming in and out now as we're circulating through this COVID crisis has certainly been looking like you're going out of business. Now, one of the very first things that I will always tell a small business is the moment you put everything on sale, it looks like you're closing your doors. And if you put everything on sale at 70% off, then people are going to think you're going out of business. So rule number one, when it comes to having that panic of inventory, what do? The first thing when you have the panic is to stop the panic. So the first thing to do is to say, okay, there's going to be a way out of this. This is not the end of the world. And the thing that I should not do is put everything on a markdown or everything on sale. The second thing you should do when you're looking at your inventory is take a step back and say, well, what of these items that I have right now, what are the items that are actually going to be valid in the market in 6 months or in 3 months? Or is this a seasonal product? So when you're starting to analyze or even look at your products, look at what you have that you're selling. It's important to say, what is a recurring purchase that is actually not something that's going to be out of style or out of season in 3 to 6 months? And then what are those goods that I actually need to work through? Otherwise, I'm going to have to put those on a markdown. So that's the second step. You start to understand the differences between what we call carryover versus what needs to be sold in season. Once you've identified what those two different merchandising brackets are, we can then take a look and say, okay, if I don't want to put everything on sale, and I realize that I've got some items that I can hold on to, what do I do with those items that I actually really need to burn through? What are those strategies going to look like? And so from that perspective, what we'll do is we'll take a look at two different concepts. The first concept is called a POS, which stands for point of sale. And the second concept here is called a markdown, which is what everyone else is familiar with in terms of it being a hard red line markdown in store. So what are the two differences? Well, most of you guys who might be putting things on sale for the weekend of 4th of July are probably going to be using a POS. And a POS is simply a 30, 40, 50% discount that's really only going to be valid on certain products or only for a certain period of time. Then the markdown, right? That is when you actually have a red line item where something's going on sale and you're actually liquidating that product. The product that is redlined that you're liquidating is going to be something that's not going to go back to a full price. Once you actually take that red line on that product and it goes from 100 to 50 and it's ticketed, right? Or it's redlined, that doesn't mean that product is going to go back up to 100. It's going to stay at 50 and then maybe get out to 25. On the POS side of things, right? What you end up with is, hey, it's 4th of July weekend. I'm going to take 30% off those dresses. And by the end of that weekend, we're going to go back to full price on that product. Francesca, am I making sense so far?
You are. One thing I was thinking while you were talking about this is, so how do you take a look at your inventory and decide the difference of which one go down to the red line and then which one you choose to promote for the weekend? Is it really something that you think is timely for a 4th of July? So like, let's say I'm a shop and I have some, red, white, and blue dresses. So I decide to do that. Or is it more like, do you use it as a way to inventory management and to move?
Absolutely. It's both. I'd say in one way, it's a great way to regulate your inventory. So if you know that you actually are planning out, let's say, your year of inventory management, knowing that, let's say in August, you might start to be receiving some goods that will be for fall, then you might say to yourself, well, oh my gosh, it's July. I have one more month to sell through these goods, and then I receive my new shipment. So you might say to yourself, okay, well, I need to make space, unless you're an e-commerce company, in which case you might have a lot of space. But generally speaking, you want to keep your inventory light. So you're looking at marking down and moving through goods that are ultimately going to be cycled out of, whether that is making space for new merchandise or it's just simply seasonally relevant. So maybe you're looking at taking a discount on swimsuits, for example, in August, because in September, you're going to be getting a new shipment of sweaters and you want to make sure that you have your inventory in a very light position. Now, when we're also, so there are a couple of different mechanisms when we're also looking at how this could potentially drive marketing. We all know that taking a discount is a great way to re-engage customers on a newsletter. It's a great way to engage customers on social media. And it's also a great way to get people interested in coming into your store or clicking over online if they purchase something or not that you put on sale. Oftentimes, if you put something on sale on a newsletter and you're using it as a driver to get someone to click over or come in store, you might actually have a great probability here of closing them in on a full price sale. You just simply use the markdown or the POS to get the traffic, to get and pique the interest. So even having one item on a markdown or a POS can help drive traffic. You don't have to have 1,000 items that you've put on sale or put on markdown. So that's a way of looking at a POS or markdowns in terms of a way that I can actually drive and kind of be a marketing tool and tactic, as well as also helping with inventory management.
So Syama, to that point though, let's say I'm a shop owner and I have, 3 red, white, and blue blankets in stores.
Mm-hmm.
It goes on sale and I start doing an advertise on them and they sell really well and they're sold out. But then when that ad is still going and someone clicks in, it's kind of sold out at this point. Do you think at that point, you need to change your ad so that it's reflective of something that's actually there? Or do you think it's okay that you've chosen something on sale that was limited inventory and now it's gone, but at least they're in the store? How does that kind of?
It's tricky. So normally speaking, I would say don't advertise it if you don't have it, because you may end up with some pretty unhappy customers. But if you have something that's similar, if you have something that's comparable, and you have them in the store, you can offer them an additional discount on something that you may have that's in store at full price because they happen to see an ad and those items have been sold out. However, do expect to have angry customers if you are advertising goods that you actually did not plan or even have in stock. your expression was
We want to eliminate angry customers, I think.
We would definitely want to eliminate angry customers. And so when you're looking at your marketing cycles and you're looking at how they play into product, it becomes really essential to say, do I have 1 item in stock that I'm marking down, or do I actually have 100 items in stock that I am marking down? If you have 1 item in stock that you're marking down, you might get the traffic to come over, and it actually might work from a marketing perspective, but you will then train your customer that actually your sales and your markdowns don't actually yield them any benefit, right? And if that happens to be the case, then you're actually going to lose the value, how valuable it is to have something on sale. It's kind of like crying wolf, right? It's like, okay, come to my site or come to my store, I'm having the sale, but by the way, there's nothing on sale. So how often is a customer actually going to keep coming to your store if your sale goods are limited? Customers get trained, right? That's one of the biggest issues that we have.
All right, that makes sense.
May I just interject one thing? Well, I just wanted to say a couple of folks on the call just want to remind us, which I think is always a good reminder, we do have listeners and participants who aren't in the restaurant or retail category specifically, but are within the bid downtown. So I just wanted to remind everybody on there, we're going to try to speak in big picture and we'll be certainly available for any questions.
Right.
Syama, I just saw a question pop in too that said, how about a buy 2 regular item and get 1 that's a slow mover for free? What about that strategy?
Yes. I think that is a great option. When it comes to different like selling tools that you can use, there are quite a few. So you guys might be familiar with the BOGO, right? Which is the buy 1, get 1. So we love a good BOGO. There's obviously the term, the GWP, so the gift with purchase. So buy, 2 of these items, we're going to give you a gift with purchase. That gift with purchase happens to be this other item, and all of a sudden you're moving through product. The thing to keep in mind here, I'll give you a third example. We call them the loss leaders. And many of you guys who have done any sort of shopping at any big store on Thanksgiving, Black Friday are familiar with loss leaders. Those are the items that get heavily advertised, that have a very small margin of profitability, that are on discount and on sale, that actually are there just to drive people into the store, buy the product. It's at a smaller margin, so it's a loss leader, but it's there to get them in store to then also piggyback and sell other products. So when we're thinking about the different tactics, right? Certainly on e-commerce, you're looking at things like, free shipping. That's obviously a big winner, especially local, free delivery, right? That's another great way to get people to purchase and convert. But when we're looking at different drivers, I would say you can try almost anything in the book when it comes to getting people to come in and moving through product. The most important things are going to be protecting your profit margins. So when you're thinking about what those profit margins are, that's going to be based on a couple different perspectives. The first perspective is going to be the actual cost of goods on the product, meaning how much did you spend in order to get that product? So that's the first consideration you might make. The second consideration you might make is the age of the item. So how old is that product? Certainly some items are going to be depreciating in value over time. Certainly your customer doesn't want to see maybe that same swimsuit that's 5 seasons old still hanging in your rack, because it might look as if, like, unless it's a bestseller, it might look as if like, hey, no one's buying any of your goods. The age question of your inventory is going to be a factor of the kinds of products you're selling. So let's say I walk into a home goods store and there are some amazing candles that are there. Well, I'm probably going to assume that those candles are going to be reorder items that I see over and over again. But if it is a seasonal scent, or let's say, for example, a Christmas tree smell of a candle, and I see that Christmas tree candle at full price in July, I might be like, what's going on here? Like, this doesn't seem to add up to me. So as we're thinking about different ways of getting people to shop, as we're thinking about different ways of incentivizing people, yes, you can absolutely do buy 2, get 1 free. You can absolutely do things like buy 1, give 1, or buy 1, get 1. Give 1 is also a good one. That means buy 1, I'll give 1 to charity, or I will give, I'll donate something. That's also very useful. But at the end of the day, it's going to be on profit margins and then also the age of the product.
All right. All right.
I know there's a lot to unpack. It's one of those things where you want to have a conversation about profitability and inventory, and we kind of unpack a whole new world of taking a look at how we manage inventory. A couple interesting ways that we can kind of think about this, and this I think actually applies to so many industries, right? When we're thinking about this concept of weeks of supply, right? It's one of my favorite concepts that I like to look at, and it's especially relevant in today's market as we're looking at, keeping lean inventory, moving through goods, and all of that. And so for me, when I think about the concept of weeks of supply, it's simply the notion of I have X amount of inventory on hand. I've been selling through X amount products on, in my shop, however, each week. You take the average of those sales over those weeks, and you take a look at your total inventory number and you divide it into that, right? So if I have 100 units on hand and every week for the last 5 weeks, I've been selling 5 units, then I take the 100 units and I divide it by 5 and I say, okay, how many weeks of supply do I think I might have on hand in my store? And depending on the kind of business that you're operating, these weeks of supply are actually going to help you make decisions like, do I need to place a reorder on that item? Do I need to mark that item on sale? Do I need to put it on a POS, or should I market it, right? Do I actually just need to maybe take some advertising dollars and market that product to see if I can get some traction on it without even putting it on sale? So taking something very simple like your weeks of supply can actually be a very easy way of looking at what kinds of strategies you can then take to help push the sale of those items.
So speaking on that, I think it would be interesting if any of our retailers would want to, if they have any questions about these specific things, if they wanted to chime in and ask us. And I am looking at the screen here, and I was wondering if Esther from Coco Bella would want to hop in. Not to put you on the hot seat, Esther, but I'm not sure if everybody knows that Esther has the shop Coco Bella. It is on Alcazar. And she was a new shop owner. She had worked for the business, but she only purchased it right before we went into the pandemic. So I thought maybe we could ask her about how she's been seeing this, because I know has been operating in a very creative way during all of this. So Esther, if you're there, would you kind of give us a wave, or if you there. Oh, I see you hopped on the screen. So hopefully we can unmute you and you can.
Hi, Esther, I think you're
muted.
I'm trying to unmute you, Esther. Let's see. Or maybe, do you have to unmute yourself? Maybe they don't give us the cruel agency of being able to randomly unmute people. Let's see if we can.
Yeah, I think she has to do it herself.
Okay, awesome. All right, Esther, if you would be so kind as to unmute yourself, we would love to be able to hear from you and how business has been going. And until I hear the proverbial, yes, I'm here, I will talk a little bit about ways of looking at your information. You know, I think what's interesting here is depending on the kinds of, depending on the kind of store that you have, depending on how you're approaching, you know, business, it might be that you have a Shopify account, in which case you're able to look at your sales and your inventory through a system like Shopify, or if you guys are using other platforms to ring up sales for your POS, like Square, for example, what you'll find is that all of those systems will also very much help you in terms of how you're looking at inventory management. These things oftentimes, guys, when they're correlated to a sales system, are going to be able to give you some really great reports to be able to look at. I have yet to meet a system that will calculate your weeks of supply, because weeks of supply are so different by business. However, they will give you the relevant information in terms of your sell-through, your inventory on hand, and kind of give you the tools that you need and the inputs to be able to do this kind of analysis. More often than not, the question I get from people is, hey, it sounds great to get this information and do something with it, but where do you get the information from, and where do those inputs come from? So if you're looking at Shopify, your business is run off of there, you're going to be looking at your percent of inventory sold report, your orders report, and if you're looking at other kinds of POS systems, likely you will have had to have inputted your inventory in there at some given point. So that, I think, is kind of the best way of approaching this. There are some startups that I've worked with in the past where everything is on an Excel document, and I have to tell you, that is the most tragic way of running reports. But sometimes the only way to do it is to sit down and do it with Excel. So there are a variety of different ways of looking at business. We don't have her, do we? We don't have Esther.
I think we lost her completely. I think not only did we not have her, I think we lost her completely. And so
oh no. Oh, that's what a shame. Well, I would encourage anyone out there who's interested in giving us the opportunity, or giving me the opportunity, to dive a little bit deeper into inventory and merchandising, to have that chance.
I wonder if Jill would want to share from a jewelry perspective, since she is on the mile. Jill, if you wanted to chime in, we'd love to hear from you.
I know everyone's nervous now. Francesca,
they're like, oh no. Jill, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I don't think we have video access on this as a webinar, but I'm happy to chat.
Please tell us, how is business going? How are you looking at your merchandising and inventory planning right now?
Well, it's funny you ask, because we just re-merchandised the entire store this morning.
Nice.
We moved around almost, I would say, half the cases, where things were located within each case, and rotated everything from the left side of the store to the right side of the store. And if it was in the back wall, now it's in the front case. Every single time we do that, the old inventory becomes new again. People walk in and they go, oh my gosh, did you just get this? And it's amazing. You sell things that you've had forever.
That's amazing. So I guess, so obviously, like, visual merchandising is like so critical in your business, right? It's like people want to see newness. They want to see how things are put together. I mean, it's such an amazing like visual component. As you are looking at inventory planning, can you give us a little bit of insight into how you look at seasonal buying, and how do you look at, we were talking a little bit before about weeks of supply, right? How do you look at how long to keep product fresh before you mark it down?
Sure. So, being in the jewelry industry, I do have to preface, we don't have product that spoils. So the good news is that we can keep it as long as we need to. That being said, obviously we don't want to have something sitting in the case for too long. So after it is here for a little too long, we re-merchandise it, we move it to a sale case, we put our products on third-party sites that do discounted selling as well, just to get it out of the store. Anyone who's put it on their wish list will reach out to them and say, we're offering this item to you at first refusal, and see if they want to make a deal. In terms of projecting what we want, we obviously have not been to any trade shows this season. I had about 4 buying trips I didn't go on. But we are reordering any fast sellers, the basics that you need all the time, we will always have. And then new product coming for the fall season, we'll be buying in limited supply because we still do have a full store right now.
Got it. What I love that you mentioned was kind of looking at selling off-price goods through other channels. As you are looking at moving product through other channels, can you please give everyone today a bit of an idea of how you go about deciding what those products should be, and how you've decided on the platforms that you choose to resell on?
Sure. So we've had an e-commerce site now for about 5 years. We've been working with a couple of resellers for, I would say, about 2 or 3 years now. And that's generally the last effort to get rid of those items, because they do take a substantial commission, or the selling price is extremely low. With jewelry, the gold goes up. So sometimes we might even be able to make a profit by melting it if we've had it long enough. But you have to explore a variety of options and figure out the best route to move that merchandise.
Yeah, I think that's it's an important point, and you're lucky to be in gold, because man, people these days, one of the last reports that I was hearing about consumer spending is, certainly during times of crisis, people really invest in fine jewelry because they see that, buying products that have gold in them, and, these kinds of products are investment pieces. They're the items that will appreciate. And I love that you have that opportunity, because, gold is a commodity. And in this way, you're actually able to protect your business to some degree. The rest of the retail world was showing a uptick in sales for the month of May, even though it was, up from May down, coming up from April. So that was an uptick. Have you been seeing kind of warm responses, and how have you been seeing kind of the market warmth, I guess, to your reopening?
We were, well, I'll start with the month and a half that we were closed. I was probably working 15-hour days at home, had all the calls forwarded to my cell phone, and made a list of about 100 clients to follow up with once we were able to open again. So it did seem like there was a bunch of people waiting for some type of service or to make a purchase, and we were selling through our e-commerce site. So business in the past month since we have been open is pretty much back to a normal month for June.
Wow, that's incredible. Congratulations, Jill. That's like, I feel like we're like on a game show and it's like, you won. Like, like.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to say it has been a lot of hard work, and it's not necessarily the most profitable way of doing business, but if you need to pay your bills, you need to have the cash flow, you have those variety of outlets. It's not just waiting for someone to walk in your store, it's having the websites, having the phone, delivering things to people's houses, meeting them on the sidewalk. There are so many variations and little details that all add together to make that.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Jill. Before we jump and pick on someone else, is there anything in terms of marketing that you have been, kind of engaging with that you would suggest would be a great channel for other folks today to start exploring?
Sure. I took a risk and fired my marketing company in March. So that saved us a couple $1,000s every month. And I've been doing Facebook and Instagram ads, and I think I'm spending $1 or $2 a day, and we've been making sales on our website.
Hey,
so it's worth it. It's definitely worth it.
Awesome. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear today. We're going to pick on another retailer and then we're going to move on to marketing. But Jill, thank you for sharing your successes. Thanks for sharing the risks that you've taken and how you're reopening. It sounds like you won at this game show. So good work.
Well, fingers crossed. We're going into our slow time of the year, so I feel like we're trying to get the last bit of special occasions left before it dries up for the summer season. So hopefully we can keep it going throughout the summer.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. I'm going to pick on someone else. So Rick, Vivian, do either of you guys have an interest in jumping on and chatting? Would love to be able to get another perspective or some insight. Francesca, feel free to poke them a little bit to.
Yes, I mean, so unfortunately, Esther doesn't seem to have a mic on her computer, but we still are so glad you're here. But yeah, Maida or Vivian, Rick, we'd love to hear from the kind of the personal grooming perspective, how things have shifted and how you kind of look at things. So we just love for you guys to join in.
Amazing. Vivian, super. Unmute yourself. You got here.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm doing this from my phone. Hold on.
We can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay.
Oh yeah, we can hear you great. How are you?
Good. Hanging in there.
Same here, all around. How have things been with the reopening? How are things going with business right now?
So the first week we reopened on May 18th. I was busy, I'm working by myself because my staff didn't feel comfortable at that time coming back and helping people. So I was by myself. So I'm working by appointment only, so I keep the door locked, but I stay in the front. And if I don't have anybody and someone wants to come in, I help them. But honestly, I don't have that happening a lot. I don't think there's a lot of people walking around. I don't know if it's the heat too. Summer is usually slow for us too. So it's like kind of like a combination of things. But during the quarantine, I also had I put my phone number and my email from home, and I would contact the brides. A lot of them I would deliver things personally to their houses because they felt more comfortable having their merchandise. But I really wasn't able to make any sales in quarantine except one that the bride had already been here and her wedding is coming up, so she needed to get the order in, and we had her measurements and stuff. I would come in and try something different. I really didn't do. I videotaped myself on Instagram, and I would show some of my merchandise. I tried to do like an accessory sale because I thought that would maybe be something people would feel more comfortable buying online without trying on. So after that, we've had appointments, but the first week was busy, but then the 4 weeks after have been kind of quiet. I do have some appointments. Last Monday was a really good day. I kind of sold that day more than I had in the whole 2 weeks of June. So it's just kind of unpredictable right now. During the time I was working on, we need a new website really badly. So I was like on top of the guy to, get things moving. And
how did it go? Were you successful in getting him going?
He's going. It's not done yet, but at least, it's going. And then also we're implementing a new point of sale system. So we use that downtime also for that. like I would come in and write down all the inventory, and then one of my sales girls would do it from home because she had used the system at another store. So it was kind of like working on the business while we were in quarantine, and then trying to push products, but you know, and trying to be top, you know, on the mind. So we like the social media girl was like posting more. But yeah, it's kind of like unpredictable right now. I'm thinking there's another store in Kendall who she's doing like trying on dresses at home, and then doing like a virtual appointment. And I'm thinking of polling my customers and seeing if they might want to do that, and I might start doing that. I don't know.
Interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if it's also because right now, like for events, it's almost like everything is stopped until next year, you know? So I don't know if that's why, if people are just waiting, you know, because now they're not in a hurry to get things for this year, and they're just gonna wait a little bit more. Well, but I'm gonna toy with that idea of having them try on at home.
I think that's really cool. I think that's a really interesting concept in terms of customer service, and certainly to get people interested in getting products on them, right? I think that was one of the major concerns as, you know, we kind of went through this quarantine period, is how do you try things on? Is it safe? What's the protocol? And seeing that something like that is being successful for a competitor of yours, I think is actually a really smart way of looking at your individual market. You know, sometimes we wonder, what are the things that we can do to help impact sales? And looking at your neighbors who are in similar spaces are a really good way to be able to get creative and get ideas. I think what's also interesting is that, you know, while your products, right, are certainly not in a trend-driven space so much as someone who's maybe selling swimsuits in the winter or in the snow, but it is one of those event-based industries, right? So when we're looking at the different kinds of products that we're selling and how to think about inventory planning or inventory management, is there a way in which you're approaching your products today in terms of knowing, you know, what those products or what you should be having in your shop that may be different from how you looked at it before?
I'm definitely, you know, a lot of these companies, like they require you to buy every season a certain amount of dresses and stuff. And we're definitely working with them, and we're being really, really cautious on how much we buy, because, you know, unfortunately, that's where most of our money is tied up, is in our inventory. And it's hard to move the samples. We have to buy our samples, and it's hard to move them. And since normally the ones that really take them are the foreigners, the ones from Central and South America, you know, they're not coming right now. So I think, just like Jill said, we didn't go to any of the trade shows. So we've bought but very, very little new. So I think we'll wait for the next season to purchase, because we'll buy now in August and September, but we won't get that merchandise till, you know, January, February, March.
Got it. So I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts, Vivian. You know, I think some of the big takeaways here are, you know, yes, buying cycles and how we look at buying is going to be very different. And what's interesting here is, you know, vendors are also looking at how they're producing differently because of the shifts that we're seeing in terms of the buying calendar. So I think what you're doing in terms of the strategies of getting people to try on products at home, I think also your idea of putting accessories on sale was a great idea. I might have taken a look and said, okay, can I put together some, you know, particular items? You know, I don't know if you put the whole category on sale or if you put specific items on sale. But some other ideas are also looking at playing with those percentages that you put on sale. So if sometimes you'll notice a retailer will put something on sale for the weekend, 20%, 2 months later, now it's 40%, 4 months later, now it's at 50%, and then eventually it heads to markdown. So playing with what those POSs can look like, looking at your inventory strategically. But it sounds like you are on your way to doing some innovative things with your business. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right.
Hey, Syama, I just want to let you know that Esther is back. She has her mic on. So if we want to pivot back to her,
Yes,
this
I would
might be
love
the
to.
moment to do that.
Esther, where are you?
Me?
We hear you
Yes.
now.
Yay.
Esther, thank you for joining us. Thanks for getting your mic on. I appreciate that.
Of course, of course. Sorry, I had to step away for a minute. I had a customer walk in, so that was very exciting.
Yeah.
I missed your question.
Wonderful. You know, right now, what I think we're, you know, in terms of getting different retail perspectives on how you're looking at merchandising, inventory management, and any sort of marketing strategies that you've been implementing that you think are working for you.
So honestly, my story is kind of crazy. I've worked at this store. It's Coco Bella. I worked here for a few years, and then I actually just bought it in February because the previous owners, they had different family stuff come up and they were going to have to close down.
Congratulations,
So
Esther.
thank
That's
you
such
so
a
much.
big accomplishment.
It's huge and
like,
so exciting, but then
wow.
so scary because a month after the world exploded, and I was like, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? So I just figured, because I've worked tons of different jobs, everything from like a gym to food to, I've done it all. So I just know from my experience that the number one thing is just customers and the customer experience. So I obviously, like, Instagram is huge. So I was posting all the products on Instagram because that's all they can see. They can't really come, they couldn't come into the store. And then I would just work with them. So anything from, of course, they could do curbside pickup. I started offering delivery, which we hadn't really done before. I would just work with them. I would stay here later. I would come in earlier. I would just work with the customers. And that's something that I think is so huge for small businesses, is it's not, you don't have all the corporate rules. You're able to modify it and help your customer in whatever way possible.
Amazing. So that's, I mean, fantastic. So tell me how, you know, with Instagram and posting, did you do any boosted ads? Did you do any advertising dollars?
So I didn't,
simply
just
organic.
Yeah, no, I did it organically. And that's something I struggled a little bit with in the beginning, because I'll go on Instagram and I'll see all these other companies who are so established, and I'd see all these beautiful pictures and they all have the same edits and it's just gorgeous. And I was just thinking, I was like, I don't have, because I'm still like, I was working on transitioning the store. So I was like, I don't have time to make it all so gorgeous. So I would just take the pictures that my vendors had provided me and just post those. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, it was hard because I was like, I want it to be beautiful and all aligned, but I didn't have the time for it yet. And even just with that, even just uploading all the pictures that had been given to me, all my customers were like, oh my goodness, it's gorgeous. I loved seeing your products, even though I wasn't able to go into the store. So like I said, even if because I'm somewhat of like a perfectionist, I don't like doing something halfway. So that was something I kind of had to work through, to be like, even if I can't do it perfectly, just do what you can. And every little bit helps.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. And I have a question for you. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions, but if you had like $100 a month to spend on digital advertising, do you feel like you know how to best deploy and activate, an ad spend, or, how you would go about doing online marketing for the business?
So from what I've seen, a huge thing is like Facebook or Instagram ads, because they really aren't too expensive. And let's be real, in this day and age, I feel like everybody's just on social media so often that makes a huge difference. And then another thing I've seen that has become so huge is having, what's the word? Not admins. Basically,
like Facebook?
No, like, sorry. Oh my goodness, I'm totally blanking. But basically, like, sending out a few free products to some big people that have lots of followers, just so that they can. I'm sorry, what? Yes, influencers. That's the word. Influencers is so huge. So even just sending one candle or one necklace or something that it's not too big of a hit for you, if they post it, all of their followers will see it. So those are two of the things that if I had a budget for it, I'd definitely invest in those.
Awesome. And so when you're thinking about, how to approach, I guess, the next phase of marketing, you have this business that is new to you. You now have the opportunity to kind of create a, advertising strategy, a merchandising plan. how are you thinking about the next, 3 months of product and inventory and marketing?
So something that's great about my store is it's a little gift store. So I don't have there, of course, there are always some things that are seasonal, but it's not like you said, swimsuits that, I mean, we do live in Miami, so that is a special occasion, but it's not like sweaters where once you're not cold anymore, you don't really sell them. So my products do last, but then I can only store so much because it's such a small store. I have very limited storage. So yeah, so lately I've just been doing small purchases. Like, I'm sorry, I forgot what the other lady's name was, but like she was saying, small purchases, being very careful. You don't want to go too big because, and then also like we need to be able to sell before we can buy again. So it's definitely, that's been a struggle, just managing the ups and downs.
Awesome. All right. Well, congratulations again, Esther. Thank you for sharing your experience. And I look forward to staying in touch to see how this new shop ownership does for you. I feel like being a business owner is exhilarating, amazing, and terrifying.
Yeah, definitely a whole roller coaster of all kinds of emotions.
Wonderful. Okay, super. Thank you, Esther.
Thank you.
So, Francesca, we've spent a good hour talking about product. We didn't dive into as much of the math or the logistics, but I think we got some great perspectives from some local retailers who are doing some interesting and innovative things. How should we pivot the conversation?
Well, Syama, I think that it's a good time to talk about that $100 spend we were talking about earlier. So hopefully, and unfortunately, we were planning to make a great announcement during this, but we can say that we do have good news coming in regard to possibly a grant down the road that you'll be able to apply for. So we were hoping to email you the application or release the application right now. It's still being worked on, but I could say if we could now focus on strategies and ways that we could spend, let's say $100 if we were given that monthly as a grant to use on social media and boosted advertising, what would be the best way to do it?
Awesome. All right, guys. So, and this is really fun. So when we're thinking about spending money, which is hard to do in this time when you're like, oh my gosh, business is like precarious, what are we doing? But given that you may have $100 a month to spend on advertising, let's talk about some interesting ways in which you might be able to execute that. So as we heard earlier, spending a few dollars a day can go a long way. It is not simply that you need to have major market budgets in order to see results. However, it really has to do with how you deploy the $100. So $100 on a national advertising campaign may not go very far, right? But $100 if you're doing some retargeted ads on customers who are already coming to your site or already in your newsletter funnel may be an excellent way to do advertising. So I think the first step is to kind of take a look at what are the marketing activities that you currently have going on in your business. Do you have a website where you are getting website traffic? Do you have an Instagram page where you're getting Instagram traffic? Do you have a Facebook page where you're getting Facebook traffic? Or even YouTube? So the first step to do before we take a look at how to spend money is where are your customers coming in from? And how are we going to take a look at where they are, and where they're coming from is where we want to spend the money. Now, it doesn't make sense if you have a small budget to go after a whole new channel or a whole new thing because you're not going to be able to get as many eyeballs. And so the goal here isn't simply to launch an advertising program. It's really to juice the people who are already in your sphere. Now, there are a few different ways that we can approach it. I'm going to go after the example of maybe you don't have a website, but maybe you have an Instagram page, or maybe you have a Facebook page. Because I would say that most of you guys out there who may or may not be transacting online, also, you guys probably do have some sort of social media presence, right? There's some sort of digital footprint. So when we're looking at your digital footprint, by that I mean where are all the places online people can find you. You want to think about where are the primary channels. So let's say, for example, Instagram or Facebook is a primary channel. So there are a few different ways in which you can target people who are in your sphere. One of my favorite things to do on Instagram for Instagram targeting is to do something called retargeting. And what retargeting means is anyone who's come to your platform, you can now retarget them with an ad. So let's say that I'm on Coco Bella's Instagram and I'm like, oh yeah, like this is so great. Maybe I followed it. Maybe I've liked a couple things, and maybe I've been on that Instagram page in, I don't know, the last 30 days. Well, guess what? Esther can now spend a few dollars a day to be able to send an advertisement to someone like me who's been on her Instagram page in the last 30 days. Guess what? She can also target 60 days, and she can also target 180 days. So when we're looking at how to spend money, right, it's important to say, if it's a small budget, where's the low-hanging fruit here? And the low-hanging fruit is in retargeting. Now, what's great about this is it doesn't actually mean that you have to have an e-commerce page. You can actually, on Instagram, do some retargeting and drive people to come into your physical store, for example. Or you can connect that retargeted ad to get people to actually fill out a form if you want it to be lead generating. So maybe you're offering a service and you want to be able to target people who have engaged with your page, but maybe you actually want them to, maybe you have a law firm and they came to your page, they followed some of your content, and maybe what you want to do is get them to fill out a form so you can then contact them later to follow up on that lead. So Instagram is not just for product-based businesses, it is for services, it is for all sorts of kinds of industries. And the way in which you could do your retargeting advertisement can really be in the form of back to a website, back in store, being able to fill out a form, or being able to sign up for some sort of newsletter or download. So if your business has any one of those four possibilities of being able to convert your customer, then Instagram retargeting or Facebook retargeting would be a really important first step in being able to acquire that customer. Francesca, how am I doing so far?
I think you're doing great. I think that, let's say we're talking about the retargeting. I know that when we do our follow-up forum, probably in about 2 weeks, we're really going to go into like the details of like, okay, where do you find the opportunity to do the retarget and things like that. But maybe, so if we're retargeting, we are talking also about a message that we're sending to people, right? So you have that option on your ad and it says, learn more, sign up here, things like that. So is that kind of what you're thinking that you would do with a retarget to someone, let's say a restaurant that's trying to increase business, so they are not quite the same as a retailer? So, how would a professional service or a restaurant use a retarget?
Absolutely, it's a great question. So if you're looking at a professional service, I would say the first thing to think about is, do I want to include any sort of discount code, right? What is the intentionality around what it is that I'm doing? Is it to get brand awareness with this retarget? So just to get more people to see it, which is also valuable. Is it to get them to convert? And if so, what is the conversion I'm looking for? Now, when it comes to a restaurant, you might actually be doing something that's around book here, right? Or book, to get someone to convert and book. If you're actually a service provider, it might be a learn more, right? Because you might actually be looking to learn more about that service, or sign up is another really great acquisition word. How do we sign up? I love sign up because it actually feels a bit more like there's a thing to sign up for. So if I was a professional service, which I guess I am, so if I was to do retargeting, it might say something like, are you stuck with your retail strategy? Do you need help understanding the next steps your business needs to take to survive and thrive? sign up here, right? Sign up to schedule a 1-hour free consultation, right? And then you would have the sign up button, and the sign up button would then link to like an email scheduling platform, right? Or the sign up here could link to an email that someone can email directly. So there are a couple different ways, or call now. It could go directly to a phone number. Someone could just call you in order to get more information. So thinking about how and what the user intent is, I think is really important. If you are a restaurant, you would also use the book now. You want people to go to your reservations line. Or if you want people to sign up for, let's say, a socially distanced dinner party because you're celebrating a big birthday. So maybe you're celebrating you want to rent out the restaurant, right? And your advertisement is catered towards socially distancing celebration, right? How do you do that, right? How do you socially distance and celebrate? Well, maybe you book out the entire restaurant. Maybe there's a learn more on how to have an event experience like that. So really thinking about your customer, where they are right now in their life, what are the issues that they're dealing with? That's going to help you understand messaging a lot more. And then the call to action against that messaging should really link through to the right destination, right? So if you have a landing page, then learn more gets you to that landing page. Shop now gets you to that shop page. But really making sure that all of those things are operating well and that it's intertwined, I think is very important. So testing.
Syama, can I talk to you a little bit more about the retargeting that you were just mentioning?
Yes.
So we had a question that came in that said, could you expand a bit more on that as it relates to Instagram?
Yes. So, and I was really debating whether or not I would do this on my phone, but I'll see if I can do this with you guys to some capacity. So you go onto your Instagram, and when you're going onto your Instagram, the first thing you want to do is you want to pick the item, right? So if you have a business account, which you hopefully do, I don't know, can you guys see this at all? So here you would have your promote and you would have your view insights, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to be promoting this, right? That's kind of the first thing that we're going to be doing when it comes to promoting. Now, after you go into the promotion, let's do this, promote. It's then going to ask you, do you want to send people to your profile? And guys, just so you know, when we go through like the deep dive together, this will be a bit more hands-on, but I'll give you some, top level ways of doing this. You'll have your profile, your website, or a direct message, right? So these are going to be the ways in which you'll be retargeting through Instagram. Now, here's something that's very important. There are two ways of advertising on Instagram. One is through the app, and then the other is going to be through your business manager account. Now, if you are advertising through the app, which is the easiest way to do it, you are going to have more limitations. If you're advertising through business manager is designed for more sophisticated advertisers, right? For people who are really honing in on lookalike audiences and nuances and kind of running advertising as a channel that they're focused on. What we're looking at here, right, when I clicked on that image, is we're talking about a boosted post, right? So this means that we're only picking an image or a post that's in Instagram's feed. If you go onto Business Manager, we can actually take an advertisement that's not on your feed and promote it on Instagram, right? So there's two different ways of looking at it. The first is I have an image and I want to promote it from my feed. So this is boosted. And then the second is going to be, I want to have a separate ad and I want to advertise on Instagram and I don't currently have it in my feed. So for this purpose, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to send people to my profile. I'm going to say, yes, I'm going to send them to my profile. And then I'm going to hit, right? So you can say profile, next, and then you define your own audience, right? So the next section here is how do you define your audience? Now, you can, on Instagram, they have an option for automatic. So basically what that does, will target people who are similar to the people who are following you today. So that's your automatic advertising. I like to call that a lookalike option. Then you also have your create your own, which is basically a field here where you can enter in all the different requirements. So maybe it's a certain location, maybe you're looking at specific interests, gender, age, you can focus on there. And then it'll kind of talk you through the next step from that will be, and if I do this now, guys, I'm going to end up with an ad that's running. So I'm not going to fully go through it because I don't really have an ad that I can run. But when the next step from there is choosing your budget, choosing your how many days you want, and then executing it. And you can actually input and put all of your credit card information on Instagram. Now, what you'll notice here is that the only option through Instagram that is similar to retargeting would be the automatic. And the automatic is simply targeting people who are already like your followers. The only way to do the actual retargeting and to do 180 days, 30 days, 60 days out is going to be through the Facebook Business Manager. And for those of you guys who will be joining us for the follow-up, as we dive deeper, I've got some homework for you. The first thing will be, I like Francesca's smile when I say homework. She's like, yeah, you know. So the first thing, guys, is I need you, if you're going to come, I need you to sign up for a business.facebook.com account. Now, if you already have a Facebook page, that's totally fine. Signing up for a business account doesn't mean that you override that Facebook page. It means that you'll be able to connect that Facebook page to a business manager account. So that's going to be really important because that business manager account is where we actually start to act more like advertisers than we do just, you know, small business owners who are looking to promote little things here and there. Today, the whole point of today's conversation was around strategy and planning and how do we start to look at analyzing the business and allocating our time and energy. So if you have a business.facebook account, we actually have the best opportunity here to be able to plan out our advertising sequentially. We can say this week we want to run this ad, this week we want to run that ad, the following week is going to be this ad. Here are the budgets that we want to add to each of those advertisements, and here are the dates. And then you can step away and let it run on its own because it'll know when to start and stop. When it comes to the Instagram in-app approach, this is a little bit more like, you know, flying by the seat of your pants a little bit. You're like, oh my gosh, that posted really well. Let me boost it so I can kind of get some more likes, some more followers. You can still do targeting with those boosted posts. But guys, the more sophisticated way is going to be through the business Facebook account. And thank you, Amy, for adding how to, you know, set up. I think that the notion of that business account, I think, is going to be so. Yeah, that's the Comcast account. Are we all signing up for Comcast?
I think she's going to repost it.
Okay, awesome. Otherwise, we've all just signed up for Comcast. I don't know.
But let me ask you in the bigger picture, right before, I'm sorry, Francesca, to interrupt, but in the bigger picture, you know, when you're talking about these business accounts, those can work for businesses within the district that aren't necessarily retail or restaurant.
Absolutely.
So that's, I think, a good additional resource to those that may not be, you know, in that type of day-to-day business.
And here's the exciting thing is you actually don't really, if you're a company and you don't really have like a Facebook page because it's not really appropriate for your business, it's okay. You can still run advertising, right? It's not like you, I mean, they will ask you to set up a Facebook page for the purposes of running the ads, but you don't actually need to have a Facebook page that you are adding content to and optimizing and managing and et cetera in order to use the Facebook advertising component. But you will want to make sure when you're running those ads that you're not going to be directing people back to your Facebook page of which you have zero content, right? You want to make sure that you're driving traffic to the destination that you've built out to close or to acquire that customer.
So Syama, just a question about the business Facebook. So you can go into the back end of your business Facebook. Is that different than using the app that's Facebook Ads Manager? Or does those two things kind of work in tandem, or are they different?
Yeah, I love Facebook Ads Manager, the app, for like obsessively looking at how it's performing. So like if you're obsessively looking at how your ads are performing, like me, then the apps are great for monitoring. Now, when it comes to actually building the ad, writing the copy, deploying the ad, setting up the budgets, you probably want to be at your computer because you're probably planning out your budgets on an Excel sheet. You're probably pulling copy and content from different places. So it's almost as if someone would say, well, you know, yes, I can look at Excel spreadsheets on my cell phone, but I would not want to be doing formulas on my phone, right? So it's kind of the same system. It's like, yes, yes, you can use your ads manager, but I prefer to use ads manager as the obsessive way of looking at performance and maybe turning things on and off. But as far as the planning of your ads, you know, and really thinking about what you're putting up for what weeks or how you're A/B split testing things, I would say until you're a pro at this, sit down, have your Excel sheets up, really be mapping this out. And look, $100 in a month spent correctly is going to yield you a return on your advertising spend. It's worth sitting down and looking at Excel and planning it out in order to see a return on investment.
All right. So the ad you set up on your desktop, your regular laptop, in your Facebook Manager, if you have the Facebook Ads Manager, will go in there so you can then do your obsessive checking. Because it's really
absolutely
how many clicks you get. I'm just gonna say, personal experience, I love to see. And then I especially love to see how the more clicks you get, the price per click goes down, right? You know, if only one person ever clicked on your ad, that was a really expensive ad you did. But if, you know, 200 people click on it, it becomes a lot more affordable.
You know, you bring up an interesting point here, and I want to touch on this briefly, which is like, how much should it cost to acquire a customer? And I think that is a bit of a black box for people. You know, sometimes someone says, oh, I spent $10 to acquire the customer. Someone might have spent $120 to acquire a customer. Someone maybe spent 35 cents. And so there is not a correct customer acquisition number. And the way that you look at customer acquisition is a bit different than we might think. And when you're looking at your ad spend, you know, you actually end up looking at your total customers for the month. So you say, I got 1,000 customers for the month, and I spent, you know, let's say $2,000 on ads, right? So then it cost you, right, $2 per customer, right? It costs you $2 to acquire each of those customers. And so if your actual, and now I'm going to get a little bit math, but if you think about, I spent $2 to get my customer, but each of those customers spent $10, right? Was it worth it? Yes, it was worth it. So when you're looking at the cost to acquire the customer, it only makes sense if you take a look at the average order value of each of those customers. So that means some of you might be spending, because you have high-end products, you might spend more money on your customer acquisition, or you actually might have more leeway to spend more money because your average order value is going to be much higher than someone who's selling lower price point goods. So even though we're always in competition to be spending less money to make more money, and that is generally the trajectory that we always want to think about advertising in, there is going to be a ceiling that you're going to spend money at, and that's going to be the average order value for that customer is really going to be the ceiling as to what you want to spend to acquire those customers. Now, outside of that, it becomes a lot more flexible. So as you're obsessively looking at clicks and you're trying to figure out like my cost per click went down, the most important things are going to be what was my total sales associated that month? Because as we think about it, we know that not everyone who sees our ad is going to buy from that ad. We know that sometimes you see an ad, you end up going back to that website a month later or a week later. We know that sometimes you might see that ad and then walk into the store and buy something, or maybe you saw that ad, you saw the retargeted ad, and you went ahead and clicked through on that second ad that you saw, but not the first ad that you saw. So it's important to judge our performance not just based on that campaign, right, which certainly we want to see great results, but to actually look at it from the totality of what was my total ad spend for the month, how many customers did I get in total, right, gross customers, and what was my total acquisition cost, and then evaluate your advertising based on that. Because in my experience, it can take sometimes 6 customer touch points in order to close a sale. That's a lot. That's like a newsletter, an Instagram organic, a paid Instagram ad. That is maybe some store signage that they're seeing. Maybe that's a print advertisement. I mean, there are so many different components that we need to address when it comes to closing a sale.
All right.
That was my big tangent. Sorry.
It was great. It was great. Very, very informative. I think maybe we should open up and see if people have questions about that. And maybe Mark has some leads for us on that.
Amazing. What I want to say is, I imagine that a lot of people might be feeling kind of like my new favorite emoji, which is like this one, where it's like, you know, it's like, oh my God, I thought I could just press the button on Instagram. And now it's like, oh my God, what am I doing?
So one is a big picture question, which I think requires everybody who's on this call, plus the partners between the bid, the chamber, and the city, is, you know, how do we get more foot traffic? How do we get people to come back to Miracle Mile and the surrounding streets? And how do we coalesce a message through all of our various retailers, restaurants, and business partners to help let them know that we're open, we're ready, we've taken all of these precautions, and ramp that foot traffic back up, even though, you know, people are still a little bit nervous, and it's the summer on top of that. And Saharan dust.
Makes for a beautiful sunset.
It's gorgeous.
These are great questions. And so what I would say is right now, as we're kind of moving, most people are hesitant right now of flying a lot. A lot of people will be taking road trips this summer. So I'm anticipating the summer of the road trip. If it was easy for me to get from New York to LA by car right now, I would, but I will be one of those poor souls hopping on a plane in a few days. And I hope that there won't be that many people with me. But for the majority of Americans, we will be looking at a road trip summer. And as we think about the road trips, it's important to think about where are some of the places in which vacation might be happening, and what are some of the places in which, you know, people from those cities will be coming to us, right? Coming to you. And so when you're looking at those local cities and you're looking at those places where people, you know, let's say within a 5-hour drive might be coming in from, I think 5 hours is pretty good. You will be wanting to target those surrounding cities because people are going to want to get in their car. They're going to want to get on vacation, be in a different space, and you want to be top of mind when they're thinking about which cities and destinations to be able to shop with, to stay at, and to eat at. So I would suggest looking at those surrounding cities within about a 5-hour drive. And starting to look at targeting in a larger landscape like that. Certainly, you know, as there are new precautions that need to be taken, I would say that that's not necessarily going to be the hero image of your advertising, which is we've taken precaution, but it might be something that you include in the copy of the advertisement after you let people know that you're open for business. Here's why your establishment is so great. Let's remember, people still need to be reminded of why they should shop with you or why they should come in. It's not simply because you've taken these precautions they should shop with you. because you have this brand. It's because you have these new products or this assortment. Maybe it's because you are, I don't know, serving some champagne and these private appointments because now they're social distancing. So you're treating your customers extra special. Think about the different ways in which you would be normally clienteling and normally advertising, and then add within that copy some of the precautions that you're taking in order to make sure that their experience is compliant with local rules and regulations around that. But I would say, guys, this is definitely going to be the summer and the fall road trip season. And so looking at that kind of local targeting is great. Also, banding together with a couple other stores, a store and a restaurant, looking at ways of how you can be cross-promoting together. Maybe there's some sort of way of creating a fun weekend, shopping, staycation, or travel vacation to any of the destinations that you guys are actively promoting and trying to get visitors in. So I think collaboration in terms of advertising and really focusing on the road trip atmosphere, I think is going to be important because people are going to want to go places and they're likely not going to want to hop in a plane. Furthermore, and this kind of goes beyond just looking at digital advertising, print media is also a really important thing to consider. Most of the time now we think about print media and we would go, oh God, like who does print? Like what's up with print? Print is very important. That same 5-hour, radius of looking at who's coming to you, think about those print media publications that those people are going to be reading and looking at right now. Think about those digital bloggers or those online publications that are also coming into their inboxes. So what I always like to say is, where are your customers and where are these people and how do you actually get yourself to them, right? This is less about them coming to you. In marketing, it's let me go where you are and let me approach you there. Sorry, Mark, I know you're going to say something.
No, I was just going to say kind of an awkward pivot, but one of the other questions we had was, strategies for restaurants that right now, and I think for the foreseeable future, are at 50% occupancy. Now, I know what we've done with the city and the partnership to try to create more outdoor dining and create incentives in terms of, priority review and no additional cost, and, even putting up barricades into the right of way has been a wonderful task, but we're still looking for more folks to take advantage of that. But strategies, maybe going back to your retargeting.
Absolutely. So I think a couple of things to consider. The first is, from what I hear in terms of stats and markets, the restaurant industry will see a dive, going into the rest of this year. So while business will pick up, it's important to think of this as not just a short term, what do I do today, but more of a longer term, what is the pivot and strategy go forward as we look into, the end of 2020 and 2021. So if your restaurant is currently at 50% capacity, I would say congratulations, because many of them are actually, doing worse, right? They're not able to reopen, or they're not having the capabilities to get people in because there's staffing issues, et cetera. So, let's look at this kind of in perspective. Number one, there are going to be social distancing guidelines around having people in your shop and having dinner. And so how you look at creating a more customized experience, I think, is going to be really important. Thinking about things like, especially, when we think about that special Thanksgiving dinner that people book out reservations to, start to think about event dining, I think, in a bit more of an experiential way. How are you getting people to come back in? What are the services? What are the ways in which you're able to enhance that experience? The next thing is also, and I think we did a great job, Nick was talking about this from Threefold the last time, was how do we think about the alternative revenue streams of being a restaurant, right? There are multiple different ways in which we look at revenue generation. Obviously, the first and foremost being coming into the shop and coming into the restaurant and eating, right? So there's the in-house dining experience, but then there's also how you're expanding your delivery services, how you're expanding dropping off food in people's trunks. Again, taking a more concierge approach to being able to create custom meals and being able to do things that bring your restaurant experience into people's homes. So just as much as we're dealing with regulation to get people in to restaurants, we also need to be thinking about what we can do proactively to get our food into people's homes simultaneously, right? It's kind of a two-way exchange here. I've seen some amazing restaurants come out with delivery meal plans where they're actually providing more in-house restaurant experiences with their meals and making delivery stops, and they're actually creating meals that are lasting people 2 or 3 days, right? And so I really appreciate that kind of that kind of creative thinking around how we can actually go to our customers as they are coming to us. Also, there are pods, and when I say pods, I mean people who are socially distancing in groups. What does that mean? Reaching out to your newsletter base, letting people know that you're open to hosting pod dinner parties for the people they've been socially distancing with, I think is a really great idea, right? Rent out half the restaurant, but if you and a couple other families have been socially distancing together, why not get together and celebrate in-house and be able to have half the restaurant for yourselves? You know, if you already know you're going to be at that 50% capacity, why not make that more open and more friendly to group dining in that pod atmosphere?
I hadn't heard that term pod before. I kind of love it. That's great.
It's really funny. I've been hearing it with a lot of friends that have kids. They're like, oh yeah, our kid, we're in this pod with, you know, 2 or 3 other families, and the kids get together and play. And so we can dine and hang out. And as long as we're all kind of taking the, same precautions, right? Like we're all protected. And that's a great way to be able to say, hey, your pod is invited to the restaurant, and maybe you'll end up actually getting 12 people to show up for dinner because they're going to come with their cohorts.
Very cool.
So Aura, thank you for your comment in the chat out to the BID members about some of the communication strategies. There seems to be a draft of the application online, Francesca, so I just wanted to let folks know.
There is. Yes,
So
we
just
did
look
put
at
the
that.
application up on the site. We didn't push it out too much yet. It's fine. You can review it. It likely is the final version. It's just that I will send an email following this probably tomorrow morning saying, you know, please apply now. So, you know, by all means, take a look at it. That's fine. It is the format we'll be using and the parameters, but I will let everybody know that's been part of this, plus our, you know, our normal database, know that the application is out there probably officially tomorrow. And so, you know, you don't have to have been a part of the webinar in order to apply. It's open to Coral Gables, retailers, restaurants, and our follow-up with Syama will, as we referenced earlier, kind of take to that deeper dive of how to spend those dollars that you are applying to the city for. So it's really going to give you that a little bit more hand-holding step-by-step, how to do this. Okay, I've got my business Facebook, I've got my, you know, my creative in mind that I'd like to use, and now going through those steps.
Great, and I'll encourage folks to continue to post in the chat or questions. Just the overarching question again of, you know, how we can engage more with like our Ike billboards. I know that Belky's answered the question directly, but that's a wonderful asset that's in the downtown promoting businesses. So, you know, I think we're just getting better by day with that group, as that has really been an outgrowth after they were installed post streetscape. So, and then I'm glad that Syama, you mentioned 4th of July. And we're very much looking forward to that coming about. And I know that the city, the BID, and the chamber will have a little more information forthcoming over the next few days about some of the things we're going to try to do, not only together, but also take advantage of the fact that, to Syama's point, a lot of people are staying home or closer to home. I'm going to be starting my great Florida road trip tonight, and I'll be video logging about that. So I hope all of you will keep an eye on that. It's 1,600 miles around the state of Florida, seeing everything from, you know, the famed Daytona Speedway to, you know, a Civil War battlefield in Marianna, Florida. Who knew? But we still have time for a few questions, or if folks want to come on the mic and ask questions, we've done that with Vivian and Jillian and Esther, and we certainly have that opportunity as well. Francesca, do you want to say anything else about 4th of July? I know it's one of your favorite holidays.
I do love it. I do love it. But nope, I'm going to keep my mouth sealed until we have the official word on what's happening. But I have been noticing that I'm not sure if she has phone capabilities, but that Claudia is on the line. She's one of our local restaurateurs, and perhaps she could chime in with some thoughts, because we'd love to hear how things are going for you and for Belmont on Miracle Mile.
Hi, everyone. Well, we are struggling. The first weekend that we reopened, which was May 20th, if I recall correctly. So the first weekend was pretty good. We were at full 50% capacity, of course. But after that, we saw a deep decline on walk-ins. Last Father's Day, we have very few tables, but we did see an increase on takeouts and delivery. We created meals, family meals, and special offers for takeout, so we can complain. We actually did good things to takeout and delivery. And we had also a few issues with staffing, because we had to, of course, cut hours. And so some of our longtime staff had to go to work somewhere else because they needed to work more hours. Other than that, well, we know it's a matter of time. It's uncertain how much longer, but we are just hanging in there. I mean, with my husband, he's pretty good with numbers, so he has cut a lot of cost, and so we'll hopefully, I mean, we know that it's not going to be overnight. We know this is going to take time. So we'll see. We'll just still here.
And Claudia, how are you letting people know that you're back open, or what you're doing? What are you? I know you in the past have done newsletter marketing. I know you've done some digital social media marketing. How are you how do you back to your customers to let them know you're back in business?
Well, I've been taking advantage of several free trials that I've been receiving from Yelp, for example, Yelp Connect. So, and I got like 2 months free trial that ends on July 31st. So I have I posted today as well, like all my offers and specials. And we, at the beginning, we said, okay, so we are back, come dine with us, support us. And also I always use my own database that I keep increasing every time I can. I ask my clients for emails, and always have my pop-up sign up in my website saying subscribe, which is very important for me to go back to the clients and, you know, keep them informed of what's going on with us. And then I also use Facebook, Instagram, free. No, we are not spending a penny. We can right now, but I try to take advantage of every single free trial that it's out there. And also I've had a lot of support from The Beat as usual. And then Coral Gables magazine also has mentioned us in their social media without even asking. So I tag, you know, these organizations that maybe they can just repost my post, and then I get free exposure. So that's what we are, and when word of mouth also is very important. So we've just and Miami Spice, which started 2 months ahead this year. It's also helping, and we try to rush with preparing the menu. So that's something that not all restaurants are doing. So, but we just took advantage, and Miami Spice has helped us increase a little bit more of traffic during lunch, where we are usually very slow, but it's gonna take time.
Got it. Thanks for sharing, Claudia. I know that it is a, you know, like I mentioned a little while ago, it's one of those, it's one of the industries that I think is going to take the longest to kind of re-nurture and recultivate. And one of the special things about being in such a great community is that people know you and they trust you and they probably love your food. So as far as, you know, being able to have that connection and that kind of standing in the community, I think is really important. And I think that a lot of customers will be going to the things that feel good and that feel familiar with the people they know and trust. So I wish you a ton of success as you're reopening, and I really do hope you join us for the follow-up as we try to, you know, troubleshoot and really set up these advertisements to help you in particular with this business.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Claudia.
So I don't have any other questions that I see here in the chat or folks raising their hands. So maybe what we could do is make a last call and see if there's anybody else you want to shout out to, and also
Love to hear from Kevin, who's with Titanic. I see that he's on here. So
all right.
If
all right, Kevin Russ, welcome. You would unmute yourself and the mic will be yours.
Kevin, are you there? You have been unmuted, Kevin, so.
all right, I don't, there must be a connection issue here.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, ladies, we'll give him a moment, but some thoughts that you have as we come toward the end of our time together. We have about 15 minutes or so.
I think we're really lucky to have Syama here for the workshop. So thank you for your time and your insight. And I am very excited that we do have this program going forward that we'll be able to do the deeper dive with. So we will probably do that the week after July 4th. So please keep an eye on your inboxes for the information and the invitation, but and just come ready to really work through the steps of getting your advertising up and running. You know, the program that the city is proposing is really it can stand alone, or it can really help to supplement what you're already doing, and then to take you through so that you can continue it after our program ends. So it's a really great opportunity, and we're lucky to have the chamber partnering, and they're going to be offering quite a few added values to the program as well. So stay tuned on our side.
Amazing. And on my end, guys, if you're going to come to this workshop, please sign up for the business Facebook account in advance. I implore you. It will be so much more advantageous because we'll be able to actually dive deeper and go into it, and we'll be on the same page. So do me a big favor and sign up for it in advance. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you guys on there. The last time we did the workshop, guys, it was just so phenomenal. We had a really nice group of people. Everyone was really chatty. It was very hands-on. I highly encourage you guys to sign up for this next one, especially if you're planning on advertising. It's gonna be a good one.
Absolutely. And then I think, unless anybody else has any questions for us, I think we're ready to call it a day.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody, we have been recording this, and it has been also streaming live on YouTube, where you can go back and I think watch this, or if you want to share it, we'd really appreciate that. And I can't emphasize enough about the overtime opportunity that will take place. You have to do a little bit of homework, but we want you to be sure to be part of that. And it is a smaller group, much more interactive, and I think the takeaways really build upon what was discussed here today, and even during our first session a couple of weeks ago. And we'll let you know as soon as we have the date in July for session number 3. And I think that will bring everything together, and we'll know a little bit more about where we stand in terms of reimagining, in many cases, our businesses and our recovery. So I want to thank Aura, and the team at the Business Improvement District, of course, our partners at the City of Coral Gables. Thank you, Francesca, for always being the first to say yes. And I certainly want to thank Syama for her expertise, her kindness, and when we work behind the scenes, she's always very thoughtful and helps us really frame what will be best for each and every one of you. So thanks for making the time this afternoon. Thanks for your questions, participation, and input, and we will stand adjourned.
Yay. Bye, guys.